Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritam Narattanam Narachaiva Devim Saraswati Vyasa Tojaya Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshwar Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtike. Right, so we read in verse 28 of the 28th chapter. Puranjana becomes a woman in the next life. Just hold it a little louder. Tam eva manasa grinan babuva pramadottama anantaram vidarbhasya rajasimhasya vishmani. Tam eva manasa grinan babuva pramadottama anantaram vidarbhasya rajasimhasya vishmani. I don't know if anybody wants to chant the verse, please do so now. We'll go to the word-to-word translation. Okay. Yashadev, does that mean you chanting or I'm going ahead? Okay. Tam, her. Eva, certainly. Manasa, by the mind. Grinan, accepting. Babhuva, became. Pramada, woman. Uttama, highly situated. Anantaram, after death. Vidarbhasya, of Vidarbha. Rajasimhasya, of the most powerful king. Vishmani, at the house. Translation. King Puranjana gave up his body while remembering his wife, and consequently, in his next life, he became a very beautiful and well-situated woman. He took his next birth as the daughter of King Vidarbha in the very house of the king. Purport. Since King Puranjana thought of his wife at the time of death, he attained the body of a woman in his next birth. This verifies the following verse in Bhagavad Gita 8.6. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajati ante kalevaram tam tam evaite kaunteya sadatad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. When a living entity is accustomed to think of a particular subject matter or become absorbed in a certain type of thought, he will think of that subject at the time of death. At the time of death, one will think of the subject that has occupied his life while he was awake, lightly sleeping, or dreaming, or while he was deeply sleeping. Very interesting. After falling from the association of the Supreme Lord, the living entity thus transmigrates from the one bodily form to another according to nature's course, until he finally attains the human form. If he is absorbed in material thoughts and ignorant of spiritual life, and if he does not take shelter under the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, who solves all questions of birth and death, he will become a woman in the next life, especially if he thinks of his wife. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 331.1, Karmana Daiva Netrana, a living entity acts piously and impiously, and sometimes in both ways. All actions are taken into account, and the living entity is offered a new body by his superiors. Although King Puranjana was overly attached to his wife, he nonetheless performed many pious, fruitive activities. Consequently, although he took the form of a woman, he was given a chance to be the daughter of a powerful king, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 641. Prapya punya kritam lokan ushitva shashvati samaha shuchinam shrimatam gehe yoga brashto bijayate. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the pious living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. If a person falls from the path of bhakti yoga, God realization, due to attachment to fruitive activity, philosophical speculation, or mystic yoga, he is given a chance to take birth in a high and rich family. The higher authorities appointed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead thus render justice to the living entity according to the living entity's desires. Although King Puranjana was overly absorbed in thoughts of his wife and thus became a woman, he took birth in the family of a king due to his previous pious activities. The conclusion is that all our activities are taken into consideration before we are awarded another body. Narada Muni therefore advised Vyasadeva that one should take to Krishna consciousness, devotional service, and abandon all ordinary occupational duties. This advice was also given by Lord Krishna himself. Although a devotee may fall from the path of spiritual consciousness, he will nonetheless attain a human body in the home of a devotee or a rich man. In this way, one can resume his devotional service. Very promising statements. That's the end of the purport. So the verse again, Tam eva manasa grinan babhuva pramadottama anantadam vidarbhasya rajasimhasya vishmani. Translation. King Puranjana gave up his body while remembering his wife, and consequently in his next life he became a very beautiful and well-situated woman. He took his next birth as the daughter of King Vidarbha in the very house of the king. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyanandana Shalakaya Chaksuramilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayarupa Kadama Yam Dadati Swapadantikam Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pashtatyade Shatarine. Padaya Krishna Krishna Bhutale. Krishna dear devotees, good morning. It's very nice to see you all. While reading this verse and this favorite subject of soul transmigration or reincarnation, I remembered a story. I remember two stories. Both of them are true stories, and they are modern day stories about the recent devotees. One story was well known and published in ISKCON News or Dandavats or some of those websites about Mataji Revati, as far as I remember, who was before Raghava Prabhu. It happened in UK. So the story went like this, that there was Raghava Prabhu, who was Prabhupada disciple, And that Prabhupada disciple reincarnated as Mother Revati in England, and took shelter of Bhaktichara Maharaj. But she, in that body, remembered his previous life as a Raghava Prabhu. And so this article was describing all those details, how he left the body and like that, and that the testimony was there to prove that story. I think it was in 2012. I read this story. It's quite a while ago, 10 years. But it was very, very convincing. It was very, very nice. And for me, it was, well, fair beginning. So just a few years in Bhakti, and I got inspiration from the story. It had many details. But the story I wanted to tell you today is a story which astonished me even more because it was happening in front of my eyes. I saw the boy. So this story is about Bharata Prabhu. And Samartha Prabhu, you may remember, do you remember Namamrita Prabhu, who was the main organizer of Waltersdorf Kirtana Mela, and not just Waltersdorf, but Kirtana Melas as such in Germany? At least 3 Kirtana Melas he has organized. Do you remember Namamrita Prabhu? If you hear us. So anyway, in Waltersdorf in Germany, Namamrita Prabhu and his wife, they were main organizers of the Kirtana Mela festival. So one day when we came to help him, we attended 2 out of 3. He and his wife were telling me a story about their son, Bharata Prabhu, who at that time was 5 years old. So when he was born, they asked the astrologer, for the name, what would be the best name to suit his character and bring luck or whatever. So some astrologers do say that you should include those letters. So sometimes they give even a few names to choose from. So this astrologer advised them, this is Bharata. This is Bharata Prabhu. Bharata Dasa. So they named him, child's name was Bharata. But what happened later, 3 years later, when they came to this first Kirtana Mela that they organized, they met a Prabhupada disciple who looked at the boy and said, "This is Bharata Prabhu. This is Bharata." And they said, "Oh, so funny, they know our son, but how do they know our son?" No, you don't understand. This is Bharata. This is Bharata Prabhu. So he explained that this boy looks identical to his good friend, his friend Sankirtan devotee, whose name was Bharata, Prabhupada disciple. What happened later is that that Prabhupada disciple, searched for the wife of Bharata Prabhu in previous life to show her the boy. And so she also, when she looked at the boy, she said, "Oh my God, this is my husband." Yes. But what happened later is that this boy remembered his previous life also. He told his mother that he was dying of prostate cancer, and it was very painful, and he doesn't want to experience this pain again. And that was true. So Prabhupada disciple Bharata Prabhu was indeed dying of prostate cancer, and he was quite young. He was 50-something. He just got married. He just got a child, and he was brahmachari a long time. And for him, he didn't agree to leave the body. He was too young. He said, "I want to distribute books still. I want to do this. I want to do that." He was not accepting the death. So when he died, when he left the body, he came in a dream of his friend, Prabhupada disciples, his good friend, and he said, "Can you please conceive me as your child? I would like to." In a dream he came. I still want to come. I still want to preach. And in this dream, the Prabhupada disciple saying, "What are you talking about? I'm too old for these things. I'm in my late 50s, early 60s, whatever. And I think 60s, in 60s. So too late for me, So next day he had another dream. And so Bharata came and said, no worries. I found a new family. Don't worry, I'll come soon. so, and so this boy appeared in this family of Namamrita Prabhu, and he actually said the story. So this boy is very unusual. So he's born in Germany. His father is Russian speaking. His mother is German, and they speak English in between each other because Namamrita Prabhu used to live in UK. And so he met his wife there. He doesn't speak German. His wife speaks English and German. He speaks Russian and English. So in his family, they speak three languages: Russian, German, and English, which Bharata already knows as his mother tongue, fluid languages, all three. He speaks in all three languages. And when you ask this boy, and you can see when I met this boy, you could see he's very unusual boy, very unusual soul, very special. And when I asked him, what you gonna do when you grow up? He said, distribute books, as 5 years old boy. Very frankly, with big determination. So one thing is to read an article when I did in Dandavats back in 2012. Another thing is to meet such person whose story is incredible. Got confirmation from his godbrother in previous life, from his wife in previous life, and he himself, when he was 3 or 4, was telling this to his mother, remembering his past life, and confirming that he's born in a family of they're well-situated devotees, and they're devotees that's most important. So as we have in this verse, such yogi who has not attained perfection is born in either a family of rich people, aristocrats, or transcendentalists. In order to not to have too many struggles in revealing his spiritual potential. I mean, when it's a rich family, there's not many struggles of thinking how just to make a living, how to have a bread and butter at home. But in family of transcendentalists, even if they're not super rich, because they're given the spiritual education, and that soul is already inclined for spiritual education, that invocation happens very quickly. And I don't know the past life of another little devotee I would like to say, and that his name is Damodar. This is son of my very good friend, Madhu Pandit, Prabhu from Czech Republic. But when they got married, Kadamba Maharaj was personally attending their Vivaha Yagya. They're both disciples of Kadamba Maharaj. And he himself, on their wedding, and it was on a festival in Czech Republic, so there was at least 150 devotees. Kadamba Maharaj said that these devotees are so nice. They are so nice people. They deserve to go back to God. They can have as many children as they like. They can go back to Godhead. They will go back to Godhead in this lifetime. Imagine your spiritual master telling you things like this. It's amazing. So I just want to show you a picture of this little boy. So his name is Damodar, and he's 3 years old. Just turned 3 recently. And he says, he made this picture, and he said, this morning he said that he doesn't want to be not Vaishnava. He, as a little child, he still speaks in a certain way. So he said, I don't want to be not Vaishnava. So you can see from childhood, he's inclined to musical instrument. He's inclined to, sometimes he's just cleaning table, and his father is asking, what are you doing? He says, I'm cleaning it for my spiritual master. Cleaning table for my spiritual master. When you meet people like this, very nice devotees, when you meet their children, you're 100% convinced about reincarnation, about those truths that we're reading in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, the verses we were just reading about. So sometimes I'm thinking that, Krishna sends those pure devotion, not necessarily they just incarnate, and they may be those who are actually pure devotees coming to just render special service as the next generation of devotees, growing up as a devotee. It's a very special thing. It's a very special opportunity. Most of us here did not have that opportunity. We had chosen Krishna while being already adults or teenagers. I should have probably were a teenager, right? Like 16 or 17 when you joined. So you probably, oh no, sorry, Devaki Priti is here. So yes, there are children of devotees. Anyhow, in either case, whether we grew up or chose Krishna when we were young ones or young adults, it's still a great opportunity. We still have quite a bit of time to try to develop this Krishna consciousness and develop a habit of thinking about Krishna, thinking about his pastimes, his glories, his wonders of his devotional service, and get ourselves in the habit of attaching our thoughts to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So much so he may be one day in our dreams also, not just in a state of awakeness. Because as Prabhupada says here, he mentions 4 different states of consciousness while living in this material body. And that is, where is it? Awake, lightly sleeping, dreaming, or while deeply sleeping. So Prabhupada says here, it's occupied his life while he was, and then lightly sleeping, dreaming, or even deeply sleeping. So if we take this by as a barometer, I certainly not ready to leave the body yet, because whatever I have in my deep sleep, this is a complete bizarre thing. But we still can. Every devotee probably can say that sometimes. Maybe somebody has it often, maybe somebody has it every day, I don't know, but at least sometimes we have dreams where we see our spiritual master, or we see devotees, or somebody even may see Krishna, and those dreams are very, very uplifting. In fact, they're not dreams. It's considered to be just a different state of reality. So this is something that inspires me. Every time I went to festivals in Ukraine, I remember while being in Ukraine, while being on those festivals, I had dreams with seeing different spiritual masters or devotees. It was very uplifting, it was very special, and it was transcendental. So I was thinking, if I just can have this after being a few days on a festival, of course, those festivals are very special, no doubt, tens of thousands of devotees, 13,000 devotees, 12,000 devotees, 10,000 devotees, chanting and dancing together. It really cleanses your mind and purifies your consciousness a lot. So I remember I was dreaming, I had Niranjana Maharaj, Bhakti-Bhringa Swami, Indradyumna Swami, Gurudev, sometimes together in the same dream, chanting. So, because those impressions, those samskaras so deep, it just continued in a state of a sleep. So it was very special. But some devotees are already having this consciousness, I was telling this story one time to Srimad Bhagavatam here, that one of my friends that I took care of in our Namahata in Prague, he is a good masseur. He can do good massages. And I engaged him in Bhakti Sangam Festival to massage different sannyasis. He's a young bhakta. This experience was very amazing for him. He did like 6 massages a day, or 8 sometimes. Different Maharajas, probably all Maharajas that were there. Lokanath Swami and Bhakti-Bhringa Swami and Gurudev also, and Bhakti Marg Swami and Praladnand Swami and so forth. So when he was doing massage to Bhakti Marg Swami, he shared with me later, because I was telling him, bring some mercy from the lotus feet, or share some story, just don't be greedy. So he told me that when he was massaging Bhakti Marg Swami, his feet was still moving, although he was asleep. Usually when the massage is deep, sometimes they fall asleep after being tired also, and all those flights, So he fell asleep, but his feet was still moving, and he was keep saying Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare, while sleeping. And of course, we know Bhakti Marg Swami is always walking through Canada, there and back, and chanting. So that's his parikrama, not parikrama, but like a preaching, like a padayatra, but walking padayatra. So he got used to this during this many decades, that although falling asleep, he's still walking and still chanting. So somebody has this consciousness that's already inbuilt, which is very nice. It's very uplifting to see that some devotees are having this consciousness. Another devotee, Vidyavajaspati Prabhu in Czech Republic, is a kirtani, is doing harinams for the last 25 years, every week, twice a week. That's his sadhana. And while cooking khichdi for devotees, he's reciting whole Bhagavad Gita from his memory. So he's getting 70 now. He's almost 70. So he was sharing with me also that sometimes when he's really having nice chanting, like, on Ekadashi he chants 25 rounds, and when it coincides with Harinam, that is for 2 hours of chanting, then in the temple he chants more, like he does more kirtan. He lives near temple, just across the temple. And he says, when we have this like kirtanamel or something, when I'm chanting a lot, I'm dreaming that I'm continuing chanting. So one night I was just chanting whole night. In my dream I was just chanting and chanting. I woke up, and the consciousness was so fresh, so nice. It's like there was no ignorance whatsoever after the deep sleep, because I was chanting whole night in my dream. And before that, the whole day I was chanting. So some devotees are really diving deep, and he looks, although he's 70, if you look at those videos, Harinams in Prague, you'll see Vidyavajaspati 90% of the time it will be his Harinam. And you see he looks like he's 50 years old, not like 70. He's very slim, very, very fit. Like just recently we had Harinam Ruchi and Maharaj, Mahavishnu Swami, he's 70 something, but his energy, how he behaves, and he's got so much energy to do Harinams and chant and play, and very youthful spirit. So they're really reconnecting with this actual position of the soul, who is ever youthful. And you can see this youth, most of the time, people, while they're 70, especially in Europe, I remember those sights. You see those old people looking from the window, just looking from the window at the weather, how does it look outside? Very depressing look, just waiting for the death outside of their flat, looking at the window. That's all. And very depressing also. They have no joy because their children are not calling them anymore, and so forth. And many diseases. Whereas devotees, even sometimes they are also diseased as old age brings diseases. Still they're joyful. They're still chanting, they're still reading, they're still hearing, they're still trying to serve, they're still trying to share their experience with the younger ones. Especially instructions like not to waste time. Thakur Prabhu especially giving us this shelter right now. He's reminding us not to waste time while we're young, and we use the time wisely. It's very, very important, because no money will substitute the time. Time is the only energy that we can use properly to develop our Krishna consciousness. This is the only thing that we have, time, and how we use it, it's up to us. So we should take this process very seriously and develop this consciousness and a habit to think of Krishna. As you remember this discussion with Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya, so when he starts asking him, about devotional service, the methods of devotional service, what's the highest? And so he starts from, Varnashrama Dharma, and elevating it through Karma Yoga, Jnana Mishra Bhakti. But then he gets to the point, he recites a verse from 10th canto Srimad Bhagavatam, Brahma's prayers. I'll just recite you that verse, so we can see from what verse Lord Chaitanya became very pleased. So the verse goes as follows, it's 10:14:3. Those who, even while remaining situated in their established social positions, throw away the process of speculative knowledge, and with their body, words, and mind, offer all respects to descriptions of your personality and activities, dedicating their lives to these narrations, which are vibrated by you personally and by your pure devotees. Certainly conquer your lordship, although you are otherwise unconquerable by anyone within the three worlds. So that's the verse where purity starts. That's a very good verse to meditate on. That you serve with your body, words, and mind. You offer all respects to the descriptions of the Lord. And those narrations are either vibrated by you personally, Bhagavad Gita, or by your pure devotees, Srimad Bhagavatam. So these two scriptures we should get attached to. Well, to many scriptures, but these are our fundamental. This is our foundation. This is the law books for the next 10,000 years. If we just get attached to these, that would be wonderful. Because we can get so much distractions we have, especially in Kali Yuga, because Kali Yuga is described as a very miserable place. A lot of disturbances are going on and getting worse all the time. So it goes parallel to our golden age, where we have Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, chanting of the holy name, Archa Vigraha, association of devotees, and visiting the holy dhams, which are still present, and so forth. You know, it's just goes parallel. All the climate changes, wars, economic recessions, violence, this, that, the other, and getting worse. You know, like yesterday we had a very special occasion. There were two Prabhupada disciples visiting us randomly, Vyasa-san Prabhu and Loka Sashti, if I remember correctly. Devotees, they live in New Vrindavan. And so Mataji was sharing with me that, you know, like we have so much poison ivy growing everywhere these days in America. And as a child, she was a teenager, she remembers it wasn't so common. So even nature becomes more rough on us in every respect. So Kali Yuga is a very dangerous place, but here we have Lord Chaitanya's mercy, you know, just unleashing this immense potential of love of Godhead for unqualified jivas of this Kali Yuga. We are still here. Why we are still here? So I just keep repeating, why are we still here in Kali Yuga? This is the question that we should ask. You know, just preaching to me very intensely. I really enjoyed the conversation we had yesterday, about an hour. And when I looked at them, you know, Vyasa-san, Prabhu, very fun, interesting name. He shared the funny story how he got the name Vyasa-san. You know, it's not a usually it's a anyway. I'll tell this story in a minute. But he was sharing how he was traveling with Radha Damodar party, fresh devotee, you know, 21 years old, just got on a bus, you know, got shaved and called his parents that he's not coming for his birthday, that he joined Hare Krishna movement, and parents were crying, you know, typical stories of the 60s and 70s. He lived in Gitanagari also. In fact, he was building one of those, constructing one of those, I think the ashram building, he was helping to build it. So he was staying here from 1976, you know, till, you know, sometime basically for a few years. He lived here in Gitanagari. So very uplifting, very vibrant. Well, I looked at them, they look like they're so young, but they must be in their 70s, obviously. But they look so young, you know, they look so jubilant, both of them. They were full of energy, so nice, so gentle devotees. Such sadhusanga is just, you cannot miss it, you know, devotees. We cannot miss sadhusanga. This is our ticket back to Godhead, because this sadhusanga gives us so much Krishna consciousness. You know, you think of Prabhupada, you think of movement, you think of Lord Chaitanya, just while being in present. She didn't lose a moment. She was preaching to me so nicely, reminding me about what's the most important in our life. This is so nice, so beautiful. So talking about Vyasa-san, this quick story, and I'll end on this note, on the sweet note, as Yashadev Prabhu asked me to end last time. So the story goes like this. So there was Ratha Yatra, 1975 or 76 in New York. So they went through this avenue. They ended up in a park, and Prabhupada went on the stage, and he was standing right in front of the stage. So he was like, here's his head, stage is like this, and Prabhupada's feet is just there. So he can grab Prabhupada's lotus feet by his hands. So he's just standing as a young brahmachari. And so Prabhupada got on the stage. When he looked around, there's no Vyasa-san. So he looked at him because he was the closest. And he says, "Where's Vyasa-san?" In that moment, Prabhu was just shocked. He's like, this cold sweat went through his whole body. He was just shaking. Oh my God, there's no Vyasa-san. Prabhupada has to sit on something and there's nothing to sit on. And he was ready to just got on the stage and become a Vyasa-san for Prabhupada. He just thought, okay, I'm just gonna, sit on my knees and let him sit on my back. Let me be his Vyasa-san. That was his going in his mind at that time. And for his relief, in just a few seconds, which probably took like 12 years, the two devotees appeared with Vyasa-san and put Vyasa-san. So Prabhupada sit down and started to give a speech after Ratha Yatra. But then in a few days, there was an initiation ceremony, and this young bhakta was receiving an initiation name, and Prabhupada, guess what name he gave to him? Vyasa-san Das. So Prabhupada just read his mind, and he was ready to become Prabhupada's Vyasa-san. So Prabhupada gave him name Vyasa-san Das. And so his godbrothers, when they heard his name, I was like, what this name is about? But when he said the story, I said, okay, that must be a true story, because such name does not exist usually in the names that devotees usually receive, names connecting with Krishna or Radha or Sakis and so forth, Gopas. Well, of course, Vyasa-san is Balaram's expansion, so it's a transcendental name nonetheless. But this story makes it very sweet. We have 15 more minutes, so maybe we can unleash some discussion, your realizations. I certainly have more realizations than I do on this subject matter, and please unmute yourself and share. If there's any question, maybe also, but maybe we can just discuss. Anyone would like to be the brave person? So there's my wife just behind the screen. She wants to ask a question. You should have to speak loud.
You will repeat. У меня вопрос, как все-таки, если у нас уже сформировалась привычка думать о женщинах с Радха-Ичрой вместо Кришны, как же нам быть?
This is a question.
Да.
Okay. So she's asking if connecting with this verse, he was thinking about his wife, and obviously he was really indulged in that thinking during his life. So she's saying that most of us, not most of us, but in general, okay, she didn't say most of us. She just said in general, people, when they join in, even if they join in Krishna consciousness, they got used to this. They have this habit, obviously, in Kali Yuga especially, to think about women or maybe opposite sex. And this habit is already developed. So what to do? Because not only is this samskara, it's already a habit. And Prabhupada, in this verse also, he says, accustomed to think of a particular subject matter or become absorbed in a certain type of thought, he will think about that subject at the time of death. So her concern is, how is this habit changing? If it's a habit means, there's an expression, habit is a second nature. So how do you change the habit? Well, there's a simple answer to that. And then I guess there's also can be a sophisticated answer to that. So simple answer is that because spiritual samskaras are stronger, they are more potent, they're more powerful. The source of all power is coming from spiritual energy, not from material energy. And in this way, as I said, that even us, even me, when I was given the example with festivals, those samskaras were so strong that even in deep sleep, I was thinking about it. And it wasn't just one day. It was actually almost every day on the festival. Very, very deep, not realization, but impression. For me, it was like, how come, this consciousness can just produce so wonderful thoughts while sleeping or dreams. So, because usually I'm not thinking like this, maybe, and not so much absorbed. But this is a testimony that those samskaras are stronger, very strong. So what we can do with our time, as I was describing, that we should use this time to create those wonderful samskaras. So one of those samskaras is, for example, Ratha Yatra, a very deep samskara to participate in pulling Lord Jagannath's cart. Although we may not think about this way, but I heard a story, again, about a devotee who was in a coma. So he had a car accident. He was not a devotee. So he had a car accident and was in a coma. So in other words, on the verge of death and being alive. And in that state, he saw Yamaraj, or not maybe Yamaraj, but basically somebody, probably Chitragupta, telling him, about all his sins and what he's done wrong, and that he is about to go to, the particular places of this universe, the darker areas, the lower planets. And then in that line, all of a sudden, this person saw Ratha Yatra. Stop! All of this, sinful, like, oh my God, he saw Jagannath. So that's it. Liberation, right? So, okay, let him come back to this lifetime and let him have a chance to associate with what he saw. It gives him a chance. So he went out of the coma, he started to search for devotees, and eventually he became a devotee. There's another story very similar to this. And when I'm saying car accident, I may be mixing these stories, two stories now. But this story is definitely about, second one is about car accident, is about devotee who was laughing at devotees, and he was mocking them, Hare Krishna, when they were doing Harinams or something. He was laughing at them, pointing with a finger. So he had a car accident, same thing. But because he was saying either the holy name or saw the devotees, so again, he got this in that state of unconsciousness, or, he lost consciousness for some time during this accident. There was an instruction that just because of this, this is what saved you. So you have to associate with these people. And so this person was searching for devotees. So in other words, we may not even understand how powerful those those samskaras are that we are actually creating or participating in during performing our devotional service. And Ratha Yatra is one of the most powerful. We can see how much hectic it is to even make this celebration to happen. There's many obstacles, many difficulties. But when that happens, this is very, very powerful. Devotees, pulling the Lord and seeing Lord Jagannath. Jagannath especially is very merciful, very, very merciful form of the Lord. It's his ecstatic form. He's in ecstasy during this time. And when somebody's in ecstasy, he's very, very merciful, right? If you are ecstatic during your birthday, everybody's paying you attention, you want to give even more reciprocation, even more love towards devotees or towards people you are celebrating with. So in the same way, when Lord Jagannath form is, he saw when Jagannath saw his devotees experiencing ecstatic feelings towards him, his limbs started to pull in, his eyes started to grow big, and he was stunned. And so when Lord Balaram saw Krishna in this form, the same thing happened to him, and so Subhadra, same. It was contagious. So if we see Lord Jagannath, guess what? We're gonna it will be contagious. We will also become ecstatic, dancing in front of the Lord's cart, especially if we got absorbed in Chaitanya Lila, how Lord Chaitanya celebrated Ratha Yatra. So we should definitely do that, Prabhu. So maybe on Friday, if you read in Chaitanya Charitamrita, maybe you should skip your usual schedule and just read this whole chapter of Lord Chaitanya dancing in ecstasy on Ratha Yatra. Let's just do it together. Let's just read this whole chapter together on Friday to get ready on Saturday for Ratha Yatra in this way, if we have time on Friday. I don't know, maybe you're all doing service already for just a proposition, or maybe just do it in your own time. That's a really nice preparation of consciousness. So the simple answer is that those samskar, don't worry about those whole habits. Habits change. If you do something long term, you have a new habit. So if we develop these habits, well, we have to do something about it. We have to read and hear in order to have this habit regularly. And then don't worry. There's also mercy, not just your habit. In the end, Krishna says that even if devotee doesn't remember me, I remember my devotee. Because what do you do? If you dedicate it like this Brahma's prayer line that really satisfied the Lord, and from then on, the perfection started to grow. So if you started to offer your body, mind, and thoughts towards the Lord, you start to develop this habit. Even if you're not able to remember the Lord at the time of death, Lord will remember you. He will remind you. He will enter your mind, as he does sometimes. Okay, she's asking what to do practically every day in order to have this habit. Practically every day we have to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Every day. That's very practical, especially from the mouths of devotees, especially from the mouths of pure devotees, as it says here in this Brahma's prayer. If we hear every day, because those leelas are very sweet and the morning time is very favorable to hear and remember, have this consciousness, it refreshes your consciousness, and your whole day you may be absorbed in those thoughts that you had in the morning. That's very helpful. That's a very good habit. So like this. All right, Tarka Prabhu, please contribute. My wife is.
I have a question. Hope I don't spoil the wonderful transcendental mood of the class, but presently there's lots of talk in the media and in amongst the public about the issue of gender identity. Srila Prabhupada explains that in the ordinary course of events, because men and women typically are thinking very much about the opposite sex, that it is typical that one who is male in this life becomes female in the next life, and those who are female become male, and so they alternate gender, life after life. But we find now that there are many individuals who report that that from the beginning of their life they felt that they were in the wrong body, that they had perhaps a male body, but the mentality of a woman, and vice versa. Can you shed any light on what is going on there? How is that somehow or other someone takes birth, but they have a particular bodily gender, but evidently their subtle body is another gender?
Okay. Well, when my wife was born, when she was a child, she was thinking why she's not a boy. So she was thinking why she was born as a girl. So from the birth, she was very philosophical, like from very young age, like 6 years old. She asked those questions. So, like with this boy, Bharata Prabhu, when he was 3, he remembered he was a boy. So sometimes it's not always opposite, sometimes it's the same. Same as Revati Mataji remembered her as being Raghava Prabhu as a boy, as a male body. So sometimes, especially children, they may even remember that in previous life they were a different gender. So sometimes maybe a difficulty to understand why now is a different body. But I'm talking like now about yogis, transcendentalists. So they may even remember. So in other words, it's a good opportunity to not identify with the body as such, but to identify with the soul, understanding that, body may change, but I'm the soul, and soul doesn't have a gender as such. As far as the modern day condition, when people having this gender identification problem, or like not deciding who they are and what they are, maybe they should change to this, and they change it back, and then they change it back and forth, and then they became half of that and half of that, or whatever. This is given just by, I guess, modern day like propaganda in TV and advertisement, and feeling that you are free to decide whoever you are and whatever you are and whatever. I don't know how else to explain this particular moment. There was something that when you were speaking, I was thinking about something I wanted to share, and it just left my mind. So I cannot remember now. My memory is not so good, but maybe somebody else can contribute to Tarkas Prabhu's question, or maybe I didn't get the question right, Tarak Prabhu. Maybe you can just clarify for me again so I can focus on the reply.
I'm just looking for some illumination on what is happening. Why is an individual born with a male body, for example, but evidently the consciousness of a female, or born with a female body and the consciousness of a male? Seems as though somehow or other in the process of transmigrating, something got messed up and did not happen in the ordinary way. But why would that be, and what specifically is happening?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not an expert in this field, Tarak Prabhu. What is happening with their minds? I think, like, if my thinking is of any contribution during Srimad Bhagavatam, but my observation, let's put it this way, my observation is that that what's happening today, especially in the Western so-called civilization, let's not forget that Prabhupada sometimes called Western civilization, somebody asked him about civilization, he said it would be a good idea to have a civilization in the West. So I think it's just lacking of a proper education, and this free media and all that is actually putting this extra pressure to already lost souls in Kali Yuga. So I think it's just kind of a more deeply diseased stage of the mind, that you can choose whatever, and then you end up like this. So this is my observation with these people. Some who have, problems with that. But as I said, also yogis and transcendentalists may remember their past life and have a little issue, especially if they don't have the spiritual knowledge yet. Some of the children do remember this, and when they remember that they are girls or boys, and until 5 years old that can happen, they're somehow, the ability to remember past life is quite open during that time. So they may have a problem because they just been boy and now they are girl, or vice versa. So it may stay with them thinking about it, not having the answers, and not identifying properly with the soul. So that's the only thing I can say. Sorry, probably not being very helpful here. You want to say something?
The question is different. The question is about situation when really, in fact, there is some scientific fact that sometimes the body is male, but psychology of the person is female, and vice versa. It's not about culture; it's about
psychology,
mentally, and also hormones, how they work in the body.
So Venu-Madhurya is clarifying for me that the question is about also psychology of this person, why he's thinking in a certain way, and
not
the hormones.
Why he's thinking, but why Prakriti is giving the body to a soul who has certain particular mentality, because it's certain particular mentality to act as a boy or as a girl or lady or man. And if we are saying that Prakriti giving body to the soul according to the consciousness, then if the consciousness of the soul right now is kind of identified with male body, then why finally the soul, it's kind of a punishment, actually it's torturing, that the soul gets opposite body.
Yeah, so my answer would be, for this, then it's just a difficult karma, for one reason or the other. I mean, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, to understand all these intricacies of karma is very difficult to understand. But in one sense, it's easy to understand, because in Kali Yuga, it's all bad. So, we're just getting more difficulties. One of the Adhyatmika klesha is one of the kleshas is Adhyatmika klesha, when we have troubles from our own body and mind. And so this is just another, as you said, punishment, when a person is just, spending so much time struggling whether he should now, because he thinks himself like this, whether he has to do the surgical operation, spend money, change body, ensuring that the society around him accepts him or her as they are, whatever that is. So it's a nightmare in one sense. It's a difficulty. So karma is difficult. Better to get rid of the karma altogether by properly hearing Lord's pastimes. So I don't know if I made my best.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. All right, so I guess 8:05, 8:06, and TVs are probably opening up now, and very nice to have your association. Thank you for your sangha. Thank you for tolerating me. And yeah, let us get inspiration from, reincarnation is real. I saw myself, those wonderful children, no doubt. That, it's also inspiring, because it confirms that such transcendentalists take birth in transcendental families, or rich families like Jayapatak Maharaj, Giriraj Swami. They were born in aristocratic, rich families, and you know their stories, how they gave up everything for serving the Lord very quickly, immediately, or we can say once they met Prabhupada, or once they met his disciples, or the literature. It was very quick, very igniting, very quickly igniting. So it's giving us inspiration that what we do will never go in vain. So let's just do it more. Let's just do it more consciously. Let's just do it together in Sadhu Sangha. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande.